I'm working on a website which will be called Shader Hub, and the idea is to get these 3D content. So here we can see it in Blender as this model. I downloaded it. I didn't build it, so I should actually credit whoever that was. At the moment, I'm just sort of building the thing on the local host and all that, so it's not going to go live. This model, I'd have to get permission from the user and so on for that. Maybe they would create their own account and add it up themselves. But here we have a model, and there's a script here that I wrote that basically it's quite a little script. It just goes through, gets all the vertices, all the texture coordinates, and this various stuff that we want about the model, and sends it up to the website. So that's what this bit at the bottom is doing here. You got request.post, and we post it to a URL, and we've got the secret code here, and this is a GUID that represents the user. So when someone registers with the site, they will be given a secret code, and that number they would need to use if they want to upload models from Blender. So basically you'd have to put this number in here. I've got a file name and just saying that it wants to overwrite, and the rest is just going to get in the data. Some of this stuff is just make it a bit bigger so you can see what's going on. So some of these are shaders. You can see here this is a fragment shader and a vertex shader here, and there's another pair of shaders. Either if you have textures or don't have textures, it will send up a different pair of shaders as kind of starting point. The idea is that you can author your own shaders online and make it how you like, customize everything. And if you want to do kind of live effects, you can do it on the website, as well as kind of being able to kind of manipulate properties in real time. So if you wanted to sort of change the lighting colors, or make a sparkly effect, or whatever you want to do, you can have kind of sliders and play around with it live using WebGL. So this is the model. This is the script posted up. Next phase on the Blender side of things would be to actually create a UI, so that so it's easier to use. So that you're just going to add a plugin and click upload model to Shader Hub. But as it stands, this is a starting point. And here we are. Here's the site. So if I go to the home page, first thing really is I've got a mission statement. This is kind of more about giving me a clear idea of what I'm trying to do, as opposed to and potential end goals, like providing an API for people who want to make games or manipulate things online. The first stage is just, you've got to get the 3D up there, and so I thought the best starting point really was to just be able to support WebGL, and also allow users to create accounts and add their own models and develop their own shader code. Might be a bit of a problem for because often artists aren't programmers and vice versa, so it takes a certain amount of knowledge to configure and set up and write your shaders, but it should be relatively easy, with a decent tutorial. So I guess this is partly what I'm doing here, is showing a tutorial of how to use it, and also really to just show you the current state. It's not ready, so it's still a work in progress. So I go to users here. I'm the only user, right, at the moment. I'm really hoping that there's going to be more users. So this is kind of where I'm trying to get this thing going. And this is the secret that I was talking about. So normally you wouldn't show this to people. I'm on a development machine, it doesn't really matter, but that essentially is the URL. Sorry, is the secret GUID that represents you when you're uploading files. This other GUID at the top here is what represents you publicly. So this will be up at the top here on your. Just say that's like every user will have one of those. So when I upload the files, basically they go into this bit here, and I've got this one, which is the one we were just looking at, and these are the various bits of data that get sent up, like the vertices and the fragment shader and the normals and the UV coordinates. There's also this shader binding here, shader bindings, and that is describes how the shader is bound to this data here. So when you upload the data, it doesn't really know. The shaders don't know anything about the data. They just know they need to take some input parameters, do something to it, and draw the thing on the screen. So we can have a look at it here. So here, this is just a straight-on view. I haven't yet done camera manipulation and these sliders are not active. They're just I've just been building the bit that just kind of gets the slider, gets these parameter values and builds some sliders, but they're not actually bound to the data. So when I change these, they're not actually doing anything to this object. But the idea is those are configurable. You'll be able to add different sliders for different properties of your shader and manipulate it on here. If it was about making this sparkly, you'd have maybe have a sparkliness factor that you'd want to be able to make more sparkly or less sparkly, or you just general things like here, this moving light locations and changing ambient colors and so on, light colors. But anyway, you can see it's rendering. So that's the first stage. I've got as far as pushing the thing up, configuring it, and having it render. So it's actually quite nice just to be able to see it pop up on the screen. For a while there was a blank screen while I was building all the configuring side of things. And if that's me. If I go to these files again, pick the same file, and I'll just show you kind of like how you go about configuring it. So one thing is you're in textures. So the textures aren't uploaded when you send it. They're kind of, you add them separately, and you give them a name. And so for this one is the actual normal texture. The diffuse texture, what it looks like, and the other one here is the describes the normals, the direction the normals should be facing. Currently, the shader that I'm demoing here doesn't actually make use of this. It just uses the per vertex normals, so it's not quite as precise as this one, which does it on every pixel. But that's you can edit your shaders how you like and add extra features such as normal mapping, or you might have bump mapping or whatever. Finally, I've got this thing download. So this is basically like a QR code, and the idea is you could point your phone at it, and you have an app for this Shader Hub that would download this particular 3D file just by pointing at this. And I think I'll probably also support Android and iPhone, but I need to implement those as well. So the first thing is get the site done, then implement that. And there's probably some kind of other less fun bits like trying to add the social aspects and sharing of things, and kind of more kind of just general kind of website things, advertising perhaps, or all these kind of stuff, marketing side of things, which is not really my strong point. But anyway, so that's that. But before you would be able to view the model, you have to configure it first, right? So if I go to configure add the program. So this is for that same model, and it provides you with these two shaders that are sent up from the script. Those are the same ones that are given here somewhere. Somewhere in there, there's some scripts. It's just like strings just being sent up from Blender. And so they go in here. Obviously in here you can edit your shaders and improve them to do more things, you know. So it's very customizable, you know, but slightly tricky to set up. You know, if it's the trade-off between you know, sort of single click upload, everything's done, everything's configured, versus you have to configure it yourself, but you can configure it how you like. You've got a lot more versatility. So here we have these attributes here at the top. So here we have vertex positions, the normals, and the texture coordinates. So they're vec3, vec3, and vec2, because texture coordinates are 2D, right? And then here's the associated names for those, and we want to bind them to the data. So we attach the normals. So this is the normal data sent up from Blender, being bound to that variable. Yeah, and then we want to set up the vertices and the texture coordinates. And these are the uniform variables, which are kind of the variables that are going to change on the fly. Like, you know, you might be kind of moving things on a per frame basis, or, you know, whereas this data's unlikely unless you're doing some kind of manipulation of the data. It's unlikely to just change on a frame by frame basis. In any case, you know, it'd probably be more sensible to do any kind of transformation on that data in the shader. It's more efficient, particularly in when you're running on JavaScript. It's not some, you haven't got a sort of high-powered computer language. It's going to be a bit slow if you're moving thousands of points around in this. So you're better off doing what you can in the shaders. Yeah. So here we have the projection matrix. This hasn't been sent up. There's no projection matrix being sent from Blender, but you can either, if you're really smart, type in your projection matrix here, but I don't think many people could do it off the top of their heads. You know, they have to be calculated really. So here I've done a thing which allows you to compute your projection matrix. So I put projection in there, and this is we've selected a perspective projection. Obviously you can have orthographic, is that how you pronounce it? Orthogonal, yeah, I think it's orthographic. Basically, you know, do you want things to get smaller as they get further away? And we do, so we put perspective, right? So we add that in, apply. Then we have the normal matrix, and this is normally the inverse of the transpose. So we have two operations here, inverse and transpose, which we apply to the world matrix, and that should be provide the normal matrix. And the reason is kind of related to the fact that normals move differently to vertices in that they are direction vectors and not position vectors, so they don't have a translational part. You know, when you rotate a normal, you never move a normal, you just change its direction. Yeah. So here we've got other things like light color. So we can, again, not provided from Blender in this instance. I mean, we could, if we wanted, send up extra properties. But, so then here I'll just call this light color. Yeah. And we'll give it a value of all ones, which is white. But we might want to change the light color on the fly while we're viewing the thing, like with those sliders. So Here we are. We can add the operation. This is a range operation, which should basically put a range slider up onto your screen. You can set the minimum and maximum range and the step value. So for this case, it's a color, so it's only going to need to be between 0 and 1, right? For all those 3 variables that we just defined, that each one is going to have the same range. So we apply that. Other things like the point location, for instance, we might want to, let's just define, this is the light location, so it's a point light, that's what it's called, point light. And we'll just say we want it all at 0, but we might want to move the location in a much broader way, because we want to move the light around the scene, right? So we could say, okay, minus 100 to 100, for instance, might be our range. We might want to move in bigger steps, like 1. So really, this is the configuration stage. It's a little bit boring, you know. It's got to be done, but as the main thing is, you can change the shader here, and that will give you another set of parameters, you know, another more variables here that you can bind in different ways, and so it should be quite versatile. It's not currently implemented, but if you click this run button, it should give you a little preview up here. That was partly just like a nice to have, but also partly because you can't actually compile a shader without having a canvas in WebGL, so you have to have a canvas object. So I thought, well, okay, I can have like a 1 pixel canvas object and pretend it isn't there, or I can just actually have one and be allowed to view as you're developing. But it's also a good idea because you might not want to commit your changes, you might want to have a look first, right? So this run gives you like a preview up here. When you're happy, you can go ahead and commit, so that's this commit bindings thing, and that will post up all these links that we've just set here in the first things we've defined, and the range sliders and so on. So at the end here is also we've got the sampler, texture sampler, so that will be pointing to the normal, to the diffuse map. For normals, we'd have to actually implement another sampler and calculate the per pixel normal information rather than just the per vertex in the fragment. So we do that in the fragment shader. So you'd have kind of like sampler 1 and sampler 2 or something here. You can also add more programs, so at the moment that's just 1, but the idea is you can configure as many programs as you like. They could be, like if you have multiple objects, you might want to have a different set of shaders for different objects, depending on what you're rendering within the scene, you know. And so this is where you would do that. You would just do it, compile it again, bind up. So at the moment I can only, it's all the same objects because I've only sending up 1 object, but you could send more than 1 object up with a single post, and that would that's what this bit's for. And so that's really it. It's got some other things, you know, register, login type of things, but I need to do more on that as well, like perhaps you know, search for objects, or you know, rather than just sort of listing the users down here. There's going to be going to need some more kind of friendly stuff in there. Maybe some kind of forum, or you know, maybe like, you know, jobs, these kind of things. A bit of advertising on the front page, maybe, because I need to monetize this thing. Otherwise, it's a lot of work, and not, you know, it's all for free. But I want it to be free, but I just also need to, you know, it's going to take time, so it's nice if I can benefit in some way from it. First thing is, you know, obviously get users on it and see how it does. There's no point putting an advert on a site with one member. So it's just trying to sort of keep the long term in mind as well, slightly. And that's it. Shader Hub under development. I'll keep you posted as it progresses, and hopefully it should attract enough attention that people might even want to use it and put their 3D up there. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.